I'm excited. It is 1 o'clock, well, 1:05. It is time for your hot topics. You are hanging out with here on your airwaves, and it's been a pretty decent week. Last week, I think we had a chat, in terms of financial freedom and how we can achieve it. And today, I will be sitting down with members of the Golden Key and the tedx talk that we regularly have at the University of Pretoria, which was happening last week, Wednesday, I think. Yeah, it was Wednesday, and it's been absolutely amazing. If you missed it, we're just gonna give you some highlights of what was happening, and also just get a little more breakdown as to why such talks are necessary. To kick things off, I'm just quickly going to head to an interview that my boss did, Michael. He basically just went there on my behalf, and he basically just tried to understand what the whole talk was about and why it's necessary for us as the youth to be having such conversations. Let's get into it.
We are here with the chairperson of Golden Key. She's going to be hosting a panel discussion about issues that we as young people and as students should be talking about. Alma, thank you so much for chatting to us.
Thank you so much for being here. So what the panel discussion is basically angled towards is we're going to be discussing issues that we as the youth face and coming up with solutions, which is the most important part, is that we always speak, we always discuss, we always, have bad things to say about what's going on in the country and in the world at large, but we don't come up with solutions. So essentially this panel discussion is for us to sit down, come up with solutions, which we will present to Tabang. Tabang is the ward councillor of Tshwane from ANC, and those solutions we hope will be able to be put into place.
Okay, but apart from doing that, you're also streaming this live on Instagram, and you are aiming to engage with as many young people as possible. Can you just talk about where this idea came from?
So as Golden Key International Honor Society is an international organization that gives credit to students, the top 15% of students in the university, academic students, and basically the pillars of Golden Key are academics, leadership, and service. So we came up with an idea to not only provide our students with knowledge, as book knowledge, but to provide them about knowledge with societal issues, which is why we had the panel discussion to enable us to have a discussion and work on that leadership part of the pillars of Golden Key.
How did you choose your panelists, if I may ask?
So our panelists, we were looking for people who we know are very involved in speaking about social justice, people who are willing and able. We sent out quite a few emails, but these were the people who were willing and able to do it with us. So on the panel, we have, for example, Enhle Mapumula, who is Black Coffee's wife. We have Lovelyn, she's a social justice warrior from Stellenbosch, and her speeches are also available on YouTube for everyone to watch. And so we found young people who are just as excited as us.
You will never guess. In studio, I am sitting with Alma, and she is with Liago Papo, who is Personal Development Director, as well as Brian Ngubani, who is the Secretary of
tedx University of Pretoria.
tedx of the University of Pretoria. Now, for our listeners who didn't necessarily attend the event, I would like you to actually explain how you conducted the whole panel discussion.
So the panel discussion, how we conducted it was we brought down these people who are experts in their fields, and we asked them to present on 5 minutes on the topics that we had, such as rape, women abuse, xenophobia, and child abuse. And after speaking for 5 minutes, then the facilitators, myself and Brian, would ask questions to the crowd that would spark discussion on why we're facing these issues and what solutions we can basically come up with.
Okay, so let me be clear. You are the ones who came up with the issues and then seeking the youth to give solutions to the issues that we have.
Correct.
So what criteria did you use in order to identify the issues that are being faced with? Because as the youth of South Africa, there are a lot of things that affect us, that are not necessarily directed to us as the youth, and sometimes it feels like they are out of our control. So what did you use to pick and choose that, okay, fine, we're going to put this one because it's important, this one is important, and yeah?
Well, being in a university space, you need to consider what exactly students are faced with. So we then looked at things like depression. A lot of students in university are faced with such a societal problem, but they don't communicate well about it because they don't not necessarily that there are not structures put in place, but they're not comfortable talking about it because it makes them feel vulnerable. So a lot of students don't want to expose themselves to that. And with regards to rape, everyone gets raped. It's tough. It's crazy how the numbers of rape just keep on increasing from year to year. So that was a very close topic. And substance abuse. Students just resort to substance abuse as a coping mechanism. So that was one topic that we felt was very important to speak about. So basically the criteria came about what exactly do students go through and what are they faced with, and that's how we came up with the topics.
Okay, it's interesting because Alma sent me the document that you have intentions of sending to the ward something.
So that was our original plan. Our original plan was to draft a document and send it through to government so that these things could be implemented.
Yes.
But we sat down as a team and discovered that by sending these responsibilities to someone else doesn't really hold us accountable as to what we've promised. So then what we've rather decided to do is to put these actions in these solutions into action.
Okay.
So as a Golden Key executive, we've already created solutions from the problems that we would like to implement, not necessarily looking to government help.
Okay, so you address some issues that were not necessarily stipulated in this document. So the document that I have, it basically addresses child abuse, xenophobia, as well as rape, which are the three main topics that you have been focusing on. And like I said earlier, we as the youth face a lot of challenges and issues. So you mentioned mental health and some substance abuse, and I would like to know if going forth there will be conversations that do not only focus on these, or are these like the focus for now, and then you will evolve as time goes by?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the main focus for this panel discussion was only on these issue topics that we've identified, but in the discussion, broader subjects were also revealed that we needed to focus on education, and some felt that it was just too limited. But the whole strategy behind this panel discussion was to come up with a narrowed approach that we are able to achieve and produce deliverables on it. So for us, this was more to maintain ourselves and be accountable to something. And in future, we do plan to stretch onto other issue areas. Some people felt that we didn't touch anything about financial dependency.
Yes.
The youth being so dependent on their parents, and etc. So those issues we aim on touching on in the future.
Cool. And I wanted to say, when my boss was like, I have this young group of people that I want you to interview, and you sent me the document, and I was like, this is really cool. And I want to know, because I think as the youth, especially, let's take an issue like fees must fall, for example. As the youth, we obviously put a lot of pressure on the government, and we're like, okay, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want. Not realizing that it takes time, and it takes conversations and discussions for us to come up with solutions. What inspired the whole idea of identifying problems and coming up with solutions? Because I think as the youth, we have a lot of demands, but we don't necessarily know how we're going to go about it. So what inspired the whole idea of, listen, let's sit down, talk to the youth, and maybe we have the solutions to the problems we face?
Well, we've actually just come to the realization that a lot of people want to get involved in solving and assisting with societal issues, but the problem then becomes the how part, having the resources and the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
So coming from Golden Key International Honor Society and tedx University of Pretoria, two prominent organizations, the resources are available, and then so people then, by partnering with us and getting involved in our initiatives, they can actually get involved. So it is more related to let's take the problem to the people and then get them involved, because taking the first step was what mattered the most.
Yeah.
So by hosting this panel discussion, we knew that we'd spark a lot of conversation and it would attract the masses. So it is more of creating a platform, and then once the platform is created, everyone would then jump on the bandwagon and get involved.
Absolutely amazing. It is 1:15 time for your headlines, but we are continuing the conversation and trying to gauge as to what was actually happening, and how can you get involved if you are interested in getting involved and helping out with the mission that these young people are trying to push. Continuing our chat about the solutions and the problems that we face as the youth, I'm going to quickly play you a clip where Michael was basically chatting to Emmanuel, who is the president of tedx University of Pretoria, and just to kind of gauge, I don't think he's here, is he? He's not here. But we're just going to head to the chat now and just continue the discussion from there.
Awareness for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is this whole month. UNASA is focused on this week where they had their visibility walk the other day. So in hosting this program, we decided that to create visibility around the issues in our society, we need to get the youth to come together and express their views and try to innovate solutions for our society. We all know what's wrong with our society. We don't know what to do about it. But
Okay, so when you say solutions, your plan is to present a document over to government, basically.
Yes.
Talk to me about that document. What do you hope to see at the end of this conference?
a roadmap, basically, for all the things that we're going to talk about: child abuse, gender-based violence, xenophobia. So we need a roadmap to see where we're coming from, what the current state of the situation is, and how we would like to see our society move forward. And in that way, we put down mandates and solutions that we can measure and track to hold ourselves accountable.
Okay, so let's look at the best case scenario here. So, you come up with 10 different things that need to take place tonight. What's the implementation plan from there?
So, unfortunately, I don't have much information on that. But the coding key are the ones who will be focusing on this side of things, where the document will be given to the member of parliament, and I think they will hold him accountable as to where he's taking the document, who he's going to speak with, the processes and the discussions that are going to be happening therefore. But the point is to move beyond the document. We as a university, we have strong ties to the community. We have a role to play in our community. So even if it's not amended into the constitution, but
so I imagine that the big question is, okay, we've had these conversations, what now? Because honestly, that's how I feel when I go on Twitter and we are ranting about Mampinja beating Babe Soduma up. We are ranting. I'm like, okay, fine, because that's the interesting thing about news and happenings within society. We are outraged about it today something big happens and we just like, well, on to the next one. So I think because Emmanuel could not offer necessarily an answer to that, how do you go about then making sure that you implement this? Because one of the challenges and the questions that I had was when I saw that you guys intend on dealing or handling with child abuse, because that's a very personal issue. Like, it's something that is protected and it's something that is not necessarily out in the public. So how do you plan to go about such issues, and what has been done up until this far since the conversations have happened?
No, you make a very valid point. I remember Sibu was challenging us, and she said that there have been many panel discussions before, and there will be many panel discussions to come forth. So what makes ours different? And basically, the idea is to help in every way that we as students possibly can. So we cannot change the constitution, but what can we do? So what has been done so far was this past weekend, we were at Yabana Children's Village, which is in Shoshanguve, and it's a home for children who are abandoned or families can't take care of them anymore. And apart from having an Easter egg hunt and the usual handover idea that comes with visiting such homes, we stayed with the children, we spoke to them, we gave the girls, especially the teenage girls, life skills. Because the organizer of the program did say that they were reaching a stage where they wanted to go out into the world, and the world comes with its own difficulties and its own things that they have to deal with. So what we had to do was we encouraged the girls, we gave them life skills, we motivated them to be something more. And that maybe it doesn't deal with the idea of physical abuse and us stopping a teacher from beating a child, but it helps in our own way, in the sense that we're empowering the children we have access to. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask also, going forth, is this a once-off thing, or is this a thing that's going to be carried over?
No, so it's definitely going to be carried over. It can't be one of those situations where we go into the home, we play with the kids, and then we leave them.
Yeah.
It definitely can't be one of those. So going on as REC, we'll definitely visit a lot more, and we'll try to implement more skills like public speaking skills, things that they can use in life and out of the home structure. And we also plan on passing it on to the ECs that are to follow us. And we encourage students who have organizations, if they already have contacted us, to contact us and partner with us so that we can implement these things. An example would be the Hope Foundation, which was recently started by mentors in the STARS mentorship program. And HOPE stands for Hold On Prison Life Ends. And their idea is to go into the juvenile delinquent center and to speak to the youth there, to donate books, to empower them, because once they leave that situation, they either become rebels in society or they become inspirations to their society. So as long as we can change their minds whilst they're in that, when they step out, they can benefit the community at large.
Definitely. So another interesting thing, this is my personal observation, that I think as a society we are very individualistic. So for instance, if I know that a friend of mine is being raped or has been raped, or if I know that a friend of mine is being abused, we don't necessarily always take it upon ourselves. We don't become our brothers or our sisters keeper, in that we feel that this should not be, I should step in and do something about it. And a lot of the things that have been stipulated in this document requires a lot of the community to basically come together, not just the student community, but even the community at large, because these are issues that affect the society at large. So then how do you intend on building that spirit of community and being your sister's keeper and saying, listen, it's not just about you, look out for the next person. If you know that there's somebody that is enduring child abuse, if you know that it is somebody who has endured xenophobia or issues like that, how do we then promote a spirit of community?
Okay, so to answer that, we came up with the solution that we should have a awareness campaign which will teach people on the spirit of Ubuntu, on how to treat each other with the brotherly love and sisterly love. And yes, that is a major concern in our communities, that people have become detached from their neighbors. They could see a child crying but they would not say anything, and etc. etc. But we, as Golden Key and tedx and the community at large that was present, came up with the solutions that we should have drives that actually teach people in communities and teach them about that spirit of Ubuntu, being able to recognize something and intervene at that moment. And it all starts with us. That's what we are trying to move away from, telling people or government to do things. It all starts with us. So us as students at the University of Pretoria plan on doing that, having programs of personal development, because a lot of these people, especially parents, go through a lot of stuff that we as neighbors do not know, or their children, and then it sort of spirals down to their children, and that's how the whole system of abuse continues. The cycle just continues that way. So it's up to us to recognize that there's something wrong in this household. Back in the days, that used to be like a tradition. Whenever you notice something happening wrong, you'd approach. Your responsibility. It was your responsibility as an adult in a community to go there and actually speak. Nowadays we don't have that. It's like, why are you interfering in my affairs?
Definitely.
And it can actually get even worse. People can get dreads and killed.
People can
interfering.
get killed.
And that's the truth. And how then do we go around those issues? How do we navigate around those issues? Because there's also a level of fear. Hence people do not want to intervene in those cases. But we do plan on having programs that we definitely teach people in communities on how to treat each other. And also we're not counselors. We identified our limitations as students, that we can't be counselors, and I expect the very same for communities. So we're trying to partner with people who are counselors, especially in communities outside of the university.
Okay, amazing. So before I let you go, I'm so sad that our time is almost up. But I was reading the xenophobia solution, right? And there was something about rectifying the educational system, and I'm going to quote. It says, "We need to include African history in our education system right now. We have the French Revolution, and we have no idea what happened in the rest of Africa apart from apartheid." So this is completely kind of related but unrelated. So earlier on in the year, I saw an article about how in about 5 years' time, the government actually plans to make history a compulsory subject from, you know, an early like foundation phase or whatever, all the way until matric. So I don't know if they're going to scrap out life orientation, or, you know, it's just going to be like hit subjects for everybody. But how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that, you know, history is going to be compulsory for you?
As a Cameroonian-born citizen, if I can say so, history is so important in that history repeats itself, first of all, and everything that is happening now in South Africa is as a result of history. So if they're planning on making it, you know, something that everyone has to do, I'm fully in support of that. But then that means they have to change the educational system as well, in a way that we're not forced to learn about the French Revolution. Because in Cameroon we learned about Congo, all the different African countries, but here in South Africa it was literally French Revolution, and because of that people don't have information or knowledge about the other African countries, which is what perpetuates xenophobia, the lack of information. So that would be great if it's done well.
Okay. Any final remarks?
On the subject of education, I think it's one of the key projects that we can start with, just to implement African literature into the syllabus, you know, so that we are able to learn more about the likes of Steve Biko, you know, the likes of Julius Nyerere, who were African leaders, you know what I mean? And yeah, because that's the flaw in our system, that we don't learn about these people at an early age, and when we get to varsity we still don't learn about these people. It's just on a surface level that, oh, Shaka Zulu fought, you know, who and who, etc. But it doesn't end with Shaka Zulu and the Anglo-Boer War. It goes deeper than that, and children need to know about this at a very young age, where their minds are still malleable and still able to learn about these things and be interested about Africanism and all of that. You know what I mean?
So just like to add, by changing the narrative to focusing on African literature, people then realize who did what, the type of privileges that they have right now, and what not to take for granted, and what's been put in place to ensure that that alone would then encourage the spirit of Ubuntu and unity, because you know that people fought for this. I'd also like to make reference to what's currently happening, since the elections are also coming up. A lot of students, I'm actually going to say a lot of students turn a blind eye to the privilege of having the right to vote, you know? And that's something that, as we actually approach the elections, we should actually note. Like, people complain about service delivery and whatever, but when it's time to actually make a mark or have an impact towards that, you don't do anything, you don't act. I'm afraid, but if you don't cast your vote, then in the next 5 years you shouldn't voice your opinion on anything, because you haven't taken any action. So you need to take action, and by having such narratives brought back and put into the system, people realize how privileged we are to be able to make our mark.
Definitely, you guys are absolutely amazing. I think I'm going to be looking forward to the next TED Talk that you're going to have, and going forward, because I personally believe that it's important to be having these conversations, you know, because we, like you said, the solution is within us. You know, we are in a position where we are able to provide solutions.
Oh, actually, in the part of tedx,
it
wasn't a TED Talk.
I am so sorry.
I
am so
But anyways,
sorry.
it was a joint project.
A TEDx, not TED Talk.
So, but today, TEDx University of Pretoria has a TEDx live event, TEDx University of Pretoria live event, where we'd be rebroadcasting the live event which is happening in Vancouver.
Okay.
So we appeal to all students who are at UP to come through. The venue is Conference 100 at 5 o'clock.
That's really cool. You heard it here at Tax FM. If you want to head down and be part of the youth that actually provide solutions to the problems that we have, then head down to conference room 100 and engage in the conversation and see what it is that young people are actually talking about, the issues that affect us, because whether we like it or not, whether you're active or not, whatever that is happening in South Africa affects you directly or indirectly. So make sure you head over to the conference 100 in order to catch this conversation. And if you missed it and you wanna engage or whatever, it's also available on YouTube on our Tax FM page, so you can check it out there as well. Otherwise, for me, it's been absolutely amazing. I love you so much. Till we meet again next week, Wednesday, 1 o'clock. It is nothing but love.